Hello, my friends. Today we are starting with the news that yesterday Siversk announced a ban on gathering troops at training centers following the last two attacks. And once again, there was another strike yesterday in the Dnipropetrovsk region. The aftermath of the missile strike on Huliaipole in the Dnipropetrovsk region includes destruction and casualties. According to the Southern Defense Forces, two Iskander M ballistic missiles were likely used. The strike destroyed a cultural center, two shops, and damaged several private homes. There are injured and dead among the local civilian population. Later in the evening, another report came in. A strike hit Ukrainian troops near the village of Huliaipole, Dnipropetrovsk region. Commander Serhii Zakharevych was killed in a Russian missile strike on Huliaipole in Dnipropetrovsk region, President Zelensky reported. There are both military and civilian casualties. A full investigation into the circumstances of the strike is underway. I am awaiting a full report. Over 30 people were wounded, the president added. Friends, be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. Now let's move on to the situation along the front line, starting with the Pokrovsk direction where the situation is catastrophic. Here the Russians are assaulting the villages of Razine, Novotoretske and Volodymyrivka. It's already confirmed that the gray zone has expanded and now practically runs right along these settlements. This is clearly visible on the map with geolocations, and this information is essentially confirmed by the Ukrainian side. So, yes, this situation here is truly catastrophic. If you measure the distance from the gray zone to the town of Rodinske, it's just 7.5 kilometers left. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian forces are showing that even with protective drone nets stretched over the roads, the Russians are still managing to strike. They are continuing to fire on this route, and today Russian forces are essentially trying to cut it off completely by moving from the village of Razine toward Rodinske. Their goal is to block Ukrainian forces from moving toward Pokrovsk. If they succeed, Pokrovsk will be practically encircled, and holding it will become extremely difficult and tactically disadvantaged. Troops on the ground are already sounding the alarm, but so far the general staff hasn't taken any decisive actions. As always, nothing changes until there is a major public outcry. Myrnohrad direction. As I mentioned earlier, the situation is becoming very dangerous on the northeastern edge of our defense. The Russians are now fighting for control of Razine, and battles are also beginning for nearby Fedorivka, where the Russians managed to approach from the south via the tree line. Battles also continue for Novotoretske, where the Russians aiming to reach the western bank of the Kazionny-Torets river. I believe the Russians will try to keep pushing west to reach the Rodinske and Belitske area. This absolutely must not be allowed because it would create a partial encirclement of our garrison. Let's not forget that the Russians are trying to push us out of Kotliny and Udachne to reach the Pavlograd-Pokrovsk highway from the west and fully cut it off. They want to avoid high-risk frontal assaults. Sorry, and solve the problem by flanking. Additionally, the Russians are closing in from the east toward Novoekonomichne and Mykolaiivka and have already taken several positions near the outskirts. So we need to be ready to reinforce this direction and hit those bastards hard. As reported earlier, they've gathered a damn strong group here to achieve their objective. As for the offensive actions today, fighting continues near Novoekonomichne, where Russian troops are already pushing into the outskirts. They are also storming Myrnolyubivka, the village of Promень, Lysivka, Udachne, and advancing from Novoserhiyivka. There are no confirmed changes in control over the past day, but the situation is already at the edge. If the Russians manage to secure a foothold in Razine, it would be a complete failure. Their drones would be able to control even more roads, and the situation will deteriorate very quickly. In the Novopavlivka direction, some Russian advances have been confirmed. They managed to break through closer to Voskresenka by 1 kilometer and 500 meters across the fields. They also advanced 2 kilometers, 100 meter toward Pidubne and another 2 kilometers, 600 meters near the village of Yalta. For now, the loss of the villages Yalta and Zirka hasn't been confirmed, and the Ukrainian General Staff reports that fighting continues there. The Russians are also heavily assaulting Perebudova, Горіхове, pushing toward Novopavlivka, and storming Muravka. So the front line here continues to crumble, and the Russians are pushing further each day. Yesterday evening, the Russians claimed they captured 9 square kilometers in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Dachne. Our troops advanced near the village. The advance in Dnipropetrovsk region continues. 9 square kilometers have been liberated. However, if you look at the map with geolocations, we see that part of Dachne and the area near Novoukrainka, Zelený Kut, and Oleksiivka is fully marked as a red zone, meaning it has been captured by the Russians. We are still waiting for confirmation from the Ukrainian side, but it's clear the situation here is deteriorating rapidly. In the Velyka Novosilka direction. In addition to advancing toward Voskresenka, the Russians also managed to make slight progress near the village of Shevchenko. However, the full loss of the village hasn't been confirmed yet. It's reported that fighting is still ongoing on the northern outskirts. Additionally, the Russians continue attacking Temyrivka, and activity in this area remains high. FPV drones are also operating at full intensity. It's been reported that the Russians have begun using drones even equipped with solar panels. The Russians have started using FPV drones fitted with solar panels, said radio technology specialist Serhii Flash Beskrentov. According to him, the panel can't power the drone during flight, but allows the drone to remain in standby mode for extended periods, waiting for the right moment to strike. In the Huliaipole direction, the Russians are assaulting Malinivka and continue shelling the village. Since they clearly can't capture anything without constant bombardment, the shelling goes on. Until they level the village to the ground, they won't see any success. That's why the strikes continue, and there have been no changes along the front line in the past 24 hours. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Russians are storming Kamianske and continue the attacks. At the same time, Ukrainian soldiers confirm some Russian gains in the Kamianske area. In Kamiansk, on the Zaporizhzhia front, the Russians made some progress. They even made a flag planting attempt across the river, which for a long time had served as the front line. I seriously doubt they control anything beyond the river, but the situation did worsen after one of our most combat-ready units was pulled back from Kamiansk. Now we need time to stabilize the situation somehow. That said, we should understand that this direction isn't the main or even a secondary priority for the Russians. Still, nothing's stopping them from carrying out diversionary and demonstrative actions to tie down our forces and reserves that could otherwise be sent to other fronts. However, we must not forget that more and more Russian equipment and manpower are being spotted hidden toward the Zaporizhzhia direction. Most likely, this is a test of our defenses. If they manage to break through, they will bring in their main reserves to exploit their success. So, the situation remains extremely tense in any case. In the Kherson direction, the Russians continue the attacks near Oleshki and keep shelling the right bank of the Dnipro. However, there have been no changes over the past 24 hours, and all Russian assaults are being successfully repelled. Now, let's move to the Kostiantynivka direction. Here, the Russians are storming Chasiv Yar, but still can't capture them Shevchenko neighborhood. Ukrainian forces are taking them out in large numbers there. And they also continue assaults on Pretechene, pushing toward Bila Hora and Delievka, and attacking Yablonivka and Rusan Yar. But they are making no progress. Ukrainian forces are successfully eliminating them. In the Siversk direction, the Russians are pushing beyond the village of Grigorivka, but their advance is clearly aimed at breaking through closer to the water barrier near Siversk. They're also moving toward Zvanivka, but so far Ukrainian forces are preventing them from gaining a foothold on any new positions, and the fighting continues. In the Lyman direction, assaults are ongoing near Zarichne, the villages of Kolodязі, Шандриголове, Середнє, Глушенкове, Novy Mir, and Olhivka. As you can see, activity in this area remains very high, with up to 20 assaults per day. However, the front line hasn't changed, and Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all attacks. In the Borova direction, the Russians haven't launched any new attacks, and the situation has remained unchanged over the past 24 hours. In the Kupyansk direction, the Russians are assaulting Holubivka and Novosilka and are pushing through near Pishane. However, as before, the general staff hasn't confirmed the loss of Redkivka and Holubivka, so the fighting continues and the front line remains unchanged. In the Dvorichne direction, the Russians are assaulting Dovhenke and Petro-Ivanivka and pushing past Krasne-Persha. However, there have been no changes over the past 24 hours and all attacks have been repelled. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians are assaulting Hliboke and the village of Zelene. So far, they haven't been able to advance further, but activity remains high. Fighting in Vovchansk also continues, where the new attacks reported on Vovchansky Hutori. For now, the Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all assaults, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Sumy direction, attacks continue from Oleksiivka toward Mala Korchakivka. The Russians are also attempting to break through near Yunakivka, but they have had no success and all their forces are being eliminated. And despite this, activity remains intense up to 20 assaults per day. Trump also said he's monitoring the situation in the Sumy direction. We'll see what happens. I'm watching this situation closely, said the US president when asked what he would do if Russia, with 50,000 troops near Sumy, launched an offensive. But instead of just watching, weapons need to be supplied to destroy all the Russia's military factories and weaken them as much as possible. Only then can they be pushed out of Ukrainian territory. But Trump can help Israel win, yet not Ukraine. The Pentagon has stopped sending some surface-to-air missiles and ammunition to Ukraine due to concerns that US weapons stockpiles have been depleted too much. The decision was made back in early June, but it only took effect recently. Part of the weapons Ukraine receives come from US stockpiles. Another part is provided through the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, which involves purchasing weapons from American companies. Both of these channels operated under the Biden administration. Meanwhile, the Trump administration didn't submit requests for additional aid. However, according to an official, Ukraine has enough resources left from Biden time to last a few more months. Friends, please be sure to share your opinions in the comments. Meanwhile, Budanov said everyone must stand up to defend Ukrainian territory.
After Putin's speech, or whatever that was, a press conference where he said Russian land will be wherever a Russian soldier sets foot, and that they won't stop, how do you interpret those words? What should we, as civilians, understand from this? Will there be escalation?
It's honestly stated correctly. Wherever they reach, that area will be under their control.
Do you think no one understands this?
I hope everyone does. And as citizens, we should draw only one conclusion. We must genuinely defend our country, not hide from military enlistment offices or anything like that. Otherwise, the military enlistment offices of the Russian Federation will come, as is already happening in the occupied territories. And believe me, that's happening in full force.
Should we wait for a major escalation? Or is it already underway?
It's already underway. No one will see anything new. There was a spring offensive, a summer offensive, and basically, that's how things will continue to build. Everything you see now won't change much.
Until when, at least?
Until peace negotiations conclude.
Meanwhile, Russia has begun clashing with Azerbaijan. It started with mass arrests of members of the Azerbaijan diaspora in Yekaterinburg, accusing them of alleged crimes from over a decade ago. In response, Azerbaijan conducted its own raids and detained Russian citizens, specifically pro-Kremlin propagandists spreading Russian messaging within Azerbaijan and not just them. As a result, Russians began calling for war against Azerbaijan. The conflict is clearly escalating. There have been a lot of statements on the matter today, but I won't drag this update out. I just want to ask you, doesn't all of this remind you of the situation with Ukraine? It's clear that Russia still wants to reclaim all the lands of the former Soviet Union. They seem to have forgotten that some countries became independent and no longer want to be part of any kind of union with Russia. But that doesn't sit well with the Kremlin, and now they are threatening everyone with war. In this context, President Zelensky held a conversation with the president of Azerbaijan. I expressed Ukraine's clear support amid Russia's mistreatment of Azerbaijan citizens and threats to the Azerbaijan Republic, Zelensky said. He also offered condolences to Azerbaijan on behalf of Ukraine regarding the killing of Azerbaijan citizens on Russian territory. Zelensky noted that he and Aliyev agreed to hold a session of the Joint Intergovernmental Commission on Economic Cooperation. So, overall, friends, share your thoughts in the comments. And that's all from me. So, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.